wait for that. Yeah, all right, so the air compressor has stopped. Is this thing on? Yeah. Great Guitar Build-Off 2023. Invitationals. No limits. It's kind of what I did. I'll be honest, like when I started this thing, it all revolved around this screw. This is called a PIKA Screw from Andy Klein. He's a maker. He makes lots of things. He's known probably most for his twin turbo vise that he makes. But I saw this screw and I was like, can I build a guitar that is held on with just the one screw? I normally do set necks. I haven't done a bolt-on neck, and I was like, I haven't done a bolt-on neck in a long time. And I wanted to try it. I wanted to see if I could figure it out. And I was like, if I'm gonna do that, I also want to see if I can make it float. You know, with the exception of a couple of posts in there. And I just wanted to do something crazy. And then when it was announced that you had to use recycled materials, I was like, I know my local, I don't know what you'd call it, a local wood supply store. It's like a reclaim store. I knew they had this stuff called Million Mile flooring, and I've used it for shelving. I've used it for outdoor tables before. And it's actually from old train boxcars, and it's called Million Mile flooring because trains that are used for after 1,000,000 miles, they replace this old white oak flooring. And I was like, man, if I could cut that up and turn it into a guitar, you know, basically make it something it shouldn't be, plus the floating neck, and plus if I could make it like an arch top and do all kinds of crazy things, that'd be kind of cool. And it would test me quite a bit. But it works, it plays. It's a cool guitar. You know, I'm going to start off by saying thank you. Thank you to all my fellow builders that are always pushing me to do crazy things like this. That they're so creative in what they come up with. I think that's what the way I've always viewed the Great Guitar Build-Off, as an opportunity to be creative and to push myself to try to learn to do something new, if that makes sense. So that's what I did again this year. I'll take you through the build process. I'm going to try something a little bit different this time. I didn't film everything. I filmed a lot of it. You know, there's other things you can see on my Instagram page. But I'm going to actually try to do a voiceover and talk over it. And at the end of it, you'll see a demo. My buddy Casey Reeves, Reeves Guitar Craft, C. Reeves Makes. He does a little demo for me. The sound quality isn't that great. I was just recording through my camera here. But you'll get to see that. I do want to thank Josh Spataro from Righteous Sound Pickups for once again me telling him I want an acrylic pickup. I want to be able to see through it. I want to be able to see his work, and I want it to be able to float. And this is what he came up with, and he's friggin' awesome. At the end of this video, just because I want to do a test, I want to see if I take this one screw out that's holding these two pieces together, I want to see if the guitar will not explode. So, watch till the end, watch till after the demo, and we'll see if that comes true. Wish me luck. All right, cheers. This material, this reclaimed boxcar flooring it was pretty nuts to work with. Like, obviously there were so many joints within it. There were a lot of imperfections, but I just embraced it, to be honest. And I didn't try to hide them. And in fact, sometimes I tried to display some of the finger joints from one board to the next when it was used that way. But it machined really well. I mean, it was oak, so it's white oak. It of course machined well, but it was old and it wasn't brittle. I think probably because it was outside for so long, but it was old and it was kind of cool and different to work with. I used Richlight for this build, and Richlight is a really neat product, but one thing you can't really tell as I'm cutting it. After a while, it actually heats up as you're cutting it, and it slows your saw down a lot. So you got to make sure your saw is really, really sharp. This is a very fine example of showing how lazy I am in the fact that I didn't swap out to a smaller blade on my bandsaw. To really demonstrate how lazy I am, I should probably just buy a second bandsaw and just have a real fine, like 1/4-inch blade on that. But this is this is an old resaw blade that I had that I decided to, not take the time to swap it out. It's really funny. I don't know why whenever I post a video on Instagram of me using my router table, and especially like the bigger the bit it is, the more views it gets. Everyone thinks I'm nuts. Maybe I am. Probably am. Now I could get away with just using Titebond Original to glue the Richlight fretboard on, but I typically, just because I don't have nearly as much experience, I think I've done 3 necks with Richlight, I typically use Total Boat High Performance Epoxy to glue on the fretboard, and I scuff the back with 80 grit before I attach it to the neck, but it's probably overdoing it. I don't know. I'm not as comfortable with it as I could be. This is where I was starting to process the crazy, I think it's called crazy fiber that I was using for inlays on the guitar. Similar to the Richlight, it was kind of tough to cut through, and I made myself just a little jig to cut the spots, to put the crazy fiber inlays in, and it was one of those deals where you make the jig, it's a pretty cool jig, and you hope you actually get to use it one more time, if you're lucky. Now you can see me starting to process some of the parts and pieces of the guitar. I intentionally drew them on the board and eliminated a lot of the bolt holes that they used to tie it down to the train. I considered leaving some of the bolt holes, but I wasn't sure of how much metal was in them, to be perfectly honest. There was big old rusty bolts in there that I had to pound out, but I just muscled away at cutting some of these things off with the jigsaw, and yeah, it was nasty stuff. It was a little over an inch thick, the board. I think it's like an inch and an eighth. And what I did is I cut 2 pieces of each and stacked them up, glued them together to get that 1 3/4 inch final thickness for the body. Now this was Sketchtown, USA, when I was doing this stuff. It was just crazy shapes. When I drilled the bolts or the rods into the neck, I drilled them in at a 3-degree angle, which means when I could do the corresponding holes in the body, I could drill them in flat, if that makes sense. So that would give me my 3-degree pitch or neck break angle to the neck. So this part was a lot easier than putting a wedge down and drilling the 2 holes into the neck for the posts. Originally, I wasn't going to connect the main part of the body to where the string throughs went, but as I was looking at the acrylic and trying to determine, I was like, you know what, I better add some like steel rods or something just to make it a little bit more solid. Talk about Sketchtown. This was like a 3/8 inch. I don't even know what kind of bit it was, but it scared the heck out of me. Big time. I love doing one-off control cavities, ones that are very specific for a guitar and that you probably only will ever see once. Like, I even made templates and stuff for it, but I'll probably never use them again. I just really dig that process. The world's most expensive glue spreader, my finger. It's funny, I put this on here and I forgot to drill out the hole for the truss rod access. So I had to go back and do that after the fact, which really stunk. But yeah. And then on to neck carving. You've all seen this a million times. by the way, when I edited this video, I went back to the way I used to do my videos a long time ago, where I didn't take any content out. Everything that you're seeing is what I actually hit record for, and I just sped it up 400%. So you're seeing all of the material that I actually recorded, and just 4 times the speed. This was my experiment with creating. That was my experiment with creating that vinegar and steel wool mixture. I'm sure it has some type of fancy name. Now I'm taking the dive and trying to epoxy in the titanium rod that is, it's not bolted in, I wanted 2 pivot points, or 2 points to connect the neck. So yeah, that was the first one to make sure that it would work. And then here I am putting that vinegar steel wool mixture onto the oak, and man, like, what a cool thing. And you can see it live time here at 400%, the regular speed. Literally, you paint it on, and within seconds it starts turning black, which is really cool. And I could have done several coats. I didn't, but I considered it. It was just a really neat process. A few seconds since the last time I was talking about that crazy process, I was like, maybe I should look it up and see what that's actually called. It's iron acetate is what you're creating when you mix steel wool and vinegar. And it was cool. I got that little Tupperware thing that I stole from the kitchen. I still have it sitting in the garage, getting all nasty. So, I don't know. I've seen other people use it on even walnut before. I think any wood with tannins, a lot of tannins in it, it gets this type of reaction. So I'd like to try it on some other woods as well. Here I'm starting to glue in the acrylic pieces and to the wood parts, and I used a product called Fixo, which worked unbelievably well. But you'll see later in the build, I actually ended up taking the sides off again. I had to beat the heck out of them with a hammer to get them to break free. Just because I was trying to do I was messing around with the neck angle and stuff, and I was like, man, if I could take them off, it'll make life easier. So I did, and then I just glued them back on again. I wasn't worried about anything too fancy. This was my initial plan, was to make like a little oak box to house the pickup in it and have it suspend off of the neck. That was part of the initial plan. And I ended up making a humbucker one and then a mini humbucker one. And then I talked up my pickup guy, Josh, from Righteous Sound Pickups, and he pushed me in a different direction. And it was a much cooler direction. This was probably the highest stress moment of the build, was making sure that this neck block, or I'm sorry, bridge block was going to be located in the right place, at the right angle, at the right height from where the strings would come across. And it was a lot of measuring and finger crossing, to be perfectly honest with you. So yeah, it worked out. I'll say it that way. When I watch me doing this, I think, man, I probably should get a couple mortise chisels, like a smaller one and a medium-sized one, because using like a regular chisel for this operation, it just wants to float on you, and mortise chisels will work so much better. Looks like I need to buy more tools. Yay! You know what? Doing string throughs always freaks me out, and you're always worried, is it going to line up in the back? Or, yeah, I think everyone's bothered by that. I wasn't too concerned with it. I knew what I was trying to do, and I was like, let's see if it works out. Yeah, this is my initial plan, was to put the string through ferrules in the top of the guitar and have the strings break over the bridge at a real severe angle down to the guitar body. And then once I popped them in there and once I set the bridge a little later, I realized, I need to change the plan, because that plan sucked. Gluing the bridge in, setting it in with epoxy, and hoping that all my measurements were right and that it was actually going to work. And yeah. Doesn't look like I'm hitting it that hard, but I made that thing almost pressure fit. I didn't even really need the epoxy, and I was beating the heck out of that thing to get the bridge down to the right height. I really was. And I was like, man, is it gonna bottom out? What's it doing? Is it going crooked? I didn't really know until I actually slapped the bridge on a little later, and I'm like, okay, it actually worked, which was kind of a miracle, to be honest with you. Whenever I'm setting a tom bridge, I always like to lay a straight edge across the frets and just have that straight edge hit the front of the bridge. Not the actual saddles, but the height of the actual bridge. Makes sense to me. And fretwork. Enjoy this. I'm going to be quiet. So shiny. I'm just trying to get another decent tape pelt for the wall. That one turned out all right. Here's my first time really seeing that bridge on the guitar, and I was so thrilled with what Josh came up with. I'm normally so meticulous with some of these steps, and I tried to be with this, but with the time crunch and the fact that this was all, this wasn't the crazy quilted or flame maple or ancient Sitka spruce or something silly. It was just a boxcar flooring. I was never that concerned about it, so I typically would jump first and worry later. This was such an easy wiring job, being just one single coil, a volume, and an output jack. Yet every time I do this, I feel like I'm doing it wrong. I don't know if anyone else feels that way. And I burnt myself worse on this one than I had ever done on any previous guitar. I think I still have a blister on my finger. Recycled aquarium tubing from my kid's old aquarium in the basement. The cables already looked really cool. Like Josh did a nice job of putting me in like a clear shielding, but I was like, man, I might be able to add that aquarium tubing just to make it look a little bit different. Why not? I had to do a clear acrylic cover. I mean, it just made sense. This happens to me every time I have to re-drill a couple of holes because the finish gets in there, the epoxy or whatever. I have to re-drill a couple of holes just to make sure that the hardware gets in there correctly. Coming up here shortly, you're going to see me freak out. And if you can't see, can you see it on the bench? Yeah, you can see it right above the little yellow hand sander next to the Sharpie. You can see the bolt that is the PIKA screw from Andy Klein that is supposed to hold the neck onto the guitar. And I haven't even attached it yet, and I'm already starting to string this thing up to tension. Yeah, you'll see me realize it here pretty shortly. I think I got a second string on even. Nope, yep, I did, and here I finally realized it. I was like, oh goodness. I was worried. You can tell much better here also. My original plan was to have those ferrules right at the body, but the break angle down to the body was too severe with this. I wanted it to play like an arch top with like with like one of those crazy stop tail pieces at the bridge of the guitar, and it was too severe of an angle. So I added that piece of acrylic and drilled holes through it, which raised the angle up, which ended up looking really cool. I'll add a few things on here since pretty much I'm tuning and then gonna intonate, and then you're gonna hear Casey, my buddy Casey Reeves, do a short little demo. I built this whole guitar, and the design was around that one PIKA screw that you see there, and I wanted to try to do a floating neck, and I figured if I can do a floating neck, I want to do other parts of the guitar that are floating. It all based around that one screw, and yeah, it was kind of fun and different to come up with a design around a screw, but an innovative screw, a cool screw. So yeah, this was a fun build. It really was. It's honestly, it's not a guitar I'd ever thought I'd try to make, but every time I do these great guitar build-offs, it's always me trying to try something new and different and unique that I haven't tried before, because the other stuff gets that much easier in my mind. Like the regular stuff gets that much easier when you're doing these crazy designs.
rings through the whole thing.
And it probably shouldn't, the way the neck's attached, to be perfectly honest. It goes against everything that makes sense.
Oh, you punk.
Hope you dug it. Thank you again, Casey, for doing a demo for me. And thanks for getting to this point. So now the payoff. Will this guitar explode? So, all right, let's move the camera here a little bit. All right, there's the guitar. Let's see. This is not staged. This is, let's see what the heck happens. All right. You see it well there? Okay. This is gonna be nuts. So yeah, if you can see, let's just adjust this a little bit. The way this screw works, it really holds in there. There's magnets that engage it and press down on this piece so that you can get some bite into unscrewing it. I'm really nervous right now. Is it gonna explode? So for all you doubters that thought this thing would just fold in on itself, it didn't. All right, let's put it together again real quick. Yeah, it works. Thank you. Great guitar build off. Thanks for watching to the end. I'm actually really nervous. Thank you for everyone that's followed along. Hopefully this little thing we do called the Great Guitar Build Off can continue in some fashion, whether it's through Crimson, whether it's through the Guitar Builders Collective and things like the Jurg's Cup that can keep us all building things to keep us together as a community. It works. Cheers.